When a humble cleaning lady steps into the CEO's private elevator, the entire office expects her immediate termination, but no one imagined what would come next. If you love stories of true love conquering social barriers, please like this video and share your thoughts in the comments below. The 62nd floor of Thompson Industries Tower gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights as Sarah Chen pushed her cleaning cart through the marble corridors. At 28, she had worked as a night janitor in Manhattan's most prestigious office building for exactly 5 years, moving like a ghost among the powerful executives who never bothered to learn her name. Her worn sneakers squeaked softly against the polished floors as she approached the executive wing. The hallways here smelled of expensive cologne and leather, a stark contrast to the industrial cleaning supplies that followed her everywhere. Sarah kept her head down, dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, her faded uniform marking her as invisible to the corporate elite. "Look at her," whispered Jessica Martinez, a junior marketing executive, to her colleague David Park as they waited by the elevator bank. 5 years cleaning these floors, and she still acts like she doesn't belong here. David smirked, adjusting his expensive tie. "Well, she doesn't. People like her should know their place." Sarah pretended not to hear, though their words cut deeper than they knew. She had heard worse over the years, comments about her ethnicity, her job, her quiet demeanor. What they didn't know was that she chose to remain invisible for reasons far more complex than they could imagine. The golden elevator doors slid open with a soft chime. Sarah glanced up at the indicator panel. This was the express elevator to the top floors, usually reserved for senior executives, but it was 11 p.m., well past business hours. Surely it would be empty. She hesitated for just a moment before stepping inside with her cart, pressing the button for the 65th floor where she needed to clean the conference rooms. The doors began to close when suddenly a manicured hand shot out to stop them. "Hold that elevator!" She called Victoria Sterling, the company's head of human resources, her voice sharp with authority. Sarah's stomach dropped as Victoria entered, followed by 3 other executives she recognized but had never spoken to. Their designer suits and confident postures filled the small space, making Sarah acutely aware of her humble cleaning uniform. "Excuse me," Victoria said coldly, her grey eyes scanning Sarah with obvious disdain. "This is the executive elevator. Maintenance staff should use the service elevator." Sarah's cheeks burned with embarrassment. "I'm sorry, I didn't realize—" "Of course you didn't," interrupted Richard Hayes, the chief financial officer, his tone dripping with condescension. "It's clearly marked. Can't you read?" The other executives chuckled, and Sarah felt smaller with each passing second. She reached for her cart, preparing to leave, when Victoria held up a perfectly manicured hand. "Actually, don't bother moving now. We're already going up," Victoria said with a cruel smile. "But let this be a lesson about knowing your place in this company." As the elevator climbed toward the upper floors, Sarah stared at her reflection in the polished brass panels, fighting back tears of humiliation. The executives continued their conversation as if she weren't there, discussing quarterly reports and marketing strategies in voices that excluded her from their world entirely. "Did you hear Marcus Thompson is back from his business trip tonight?" Richard mentioned casually. "He's probably heading up to his office right now." Sarah's heart skipped a beat at the mention of the CEO's name, though she kept her expression neutral. Marcus Thompson, the brilliant, mysterious billionaire who had built Thompson Industries from nothing into a global empire. She had seen him only from a distance, usually surrounded by assistants and advisors, his presence commanding every room he entered. "Poor guy works too hard," Victoria commented with false sympathy. "All that money and power, but he's always alone. Never married, no family to speak of, just work, work, work." The elevator slowed as they approached the 58th floor. Sarah prepared to exit with her cart, eager to escape the suffocating atmosphere of judgment and superiority, but fate had other plans. The doors opened to reveal a figure that made every executive in the elevator straighten their postures and smooth their clothes. Marcus Thompson stood waiting, his tall frame filling the doorway, dark hair slightly mussed from travel, his expensive charcoal suit wrinkled from the long flight. At 35, Marcus possessed the kind of commanding presence that made rooms fall silent. His steel-grey eyes were intelligent and calculating, missing nothing as they swept over the elevator's occupants. He was devastatingly handsome in the way that powerful men often were, not perfect, but magnetic, drawing attention without effort. "Mr. Thompson!" Victoria practically gushed, her voice jumping an octave higher. "We weren't expecting you back until tomorrow." Marcus stepped into the elevator, his broad shoulders filling the space even more. His presence was so overwhelming that Sarah instinctively pressed herself against the back corner, hoping to become even more invisible than usual. "Plans changed," Marcus replied curtly, his deep voice carrying just a hint of fatigue. His eyes briefly swept over the group before settling on something that made his expression shift almost imperceptibly. The elevator continued its ascent in tense silence. Sarah could feel the weight of unspoken hierarchies pressing down on her. These executives, who moments before had been so confident in their superiority over her, now seemed small and nervous in the presence of their ultimate boss. As they passed the 60th floor, Richard cleared his throat importantly. "Sir, I should mention there's been a small issue with protocol tonight. The cleaning staff was using the executive elevator instead of—" "I see," Marcus interrupted, his voice dangerously quiet. Sarah's blood turned to ice. She could feel his gaze shifting toward her, and she prepared for the worst humiliation of her life. In a few seconds, she would be fired in front of everyone, her secret shame exposed to the very people who already looked down on her. The elevator dinged softly as it reached the 62nd floor. This was it. Her career, her carefully constructed life, everything was about to crumble. Marcus Thompson turned toward her, his grey eyes meeting hers directly for the first time in public in 5 long years. Sarah held her breath, waiting for the words that would destroy everything they had built together in secret. But what happened next would shock everyone in that elevator beyond their wildest imagination. The silence in the elevator was deafening. Victoria, Richard, and the other executives held their breath, waiting for their CEO to deliver what they assumed would be a swift and decisive termination. Sarah's hands trembled as she gripped her cleaning cart, her heart pounding so loudly she was certain everyone could hear it. Marcus Thompson's steel-grey eyes remained fixed on Sarah's face, and she saw something there that the others couldn't, a flicker of concern, of recognition, of something far deeper than a boss looking at an employee. His jaw tensed almost imperceptibly as he took in her obvious distress. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly, his voice carrying a gentleness that surprised everyone in the small space. Victoria blinked in confusion. "Sir, I don't think you understand the situation. This cleaning person was using the executive elevator inappropriately, and we were just explaining the proper protocols." Marcus held up one hand, silencing her mid-sentence. His eyes never left Sarah's face. "I asked if you were all right," he repeated, this time with unmistakable warmth in his tone. Sarah felt tears prick at her eyes, not from humiliation now, but from the relief of seeing the man she had fallen in love with 5 years ago, the man she had been forced to hide their relationship from the entire world. I'm fine, Mr. Thompson," she managed to whisper, playing her part even as her heart ached to throw herself into his arms. The executives exchanged confused glances. Why was their notoriously demanding CEO showing such concern for a janitor? Richard shifted uncomfortably, clearly expecting a very different reaction. "Actually," Marcus continued, his voice growing stronger, "I need to speak with you privately." The words hung in the air like a bomb, waiting to explode. Victoria's mouth fell open slightly. "Sir, surely you don't need to waste your time with what?" Marcus asked, his voice turning dangerously cold as he finally looked at the HR director. "With an employee who has worked in this building for 5 years without a single complaint?" with someone who has shown more dedication and integrity than most people in this company. Sarah's heart swelled at his words, even as she maintained her composure. He had been watching, protecting her from a distance, even when she didn't know it. "I didn't mean," Victoria stammered, her confidence cracking. "I think you meant exactly what you said," Marcus replied, "and I think we need to have a serious conversation about respect and workplace culture in this company." The elevator dinged again as they reached the 65th floor, Sarah's original destination. But instead of letting her exit, Marcus pressed the button for the 68th floor, his private executive level. "Sir," Richard ventured nervously, "perhaps we should discuss this matter in tomorrow's meeting." "There won't be a tomorrow's meeting for some of you if this conversation goes the way I think it will," Marcus said with deadly calm. The remaining floors passed in oppressive silence. When they finally reached the executive level, Marcus gestured for Sarah to exit first, treating her with a courtesy that left the other executives speechless. "Ms. Sterling, Mr. Hayes, I'll see you in my office in 5 minutes," Marcus commanded. "We need to discuss your understanding of what constitutes appropriate workplace behavior." As the elevator doors closed behind them, Sarah found herself alone with Marcus in the elegant reception area of the executive floor. The space was decorated in warm mahogany and soft lighting, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of the Manhattan skyline. For a moment, they just looked at each other, years of hidden longing and carefully maintained distance stretching between them like a chasm they had never been allowed to cross. "Sarah," Marcus breathed, his professional mask finally slipping to reveal the man she had fallen in love with. Vulnerable, caring, and desperately in love with her. "Marcus," she whispered back, abandoning her cleaning cart to take a step toward him. But before they could embrace, the sound of the elevator opening again made them spring apart. Victoria and the other executives stepped out, their faces showing a mixture of confusion and barely concealed resentment. "In my office. Now," Marcus commanded, his CEO persona snapping back into place like armor. As they filed into his spacious corner office, Sarah remained in the reception area, her mind racing. She could hear muffled voices through the heavy door, Marcus's controlled anger, Victoria's defensive protests, Richard's attempts at damage control. 20 minutes later, the door opened and the executives filed out, their faces pale and their earlier arrogance completely deflated. Victoria's hands shook as she passed Sarah, no longer looking at her with contempt, but with something closer to fear. When they were finally alone again, Marcus emerged from his office, loosening his tie with shaking hands. The confrontation had cost him. She could see it in the tension of his shoulders, the tight line of his mouth. "Are you okay?" he asked again, crossing the distance between them in 3 quick strides. This time, Sarah didn't hold back. She launched herself into his arms, feeling the solid warmth of his body against hers, breathing in the familiar scent of his cologne mixed with travel fatigue. "I missed you so much," she whispered against his chest. 3 weeks felt like 3 years. Marcus buried his face in her hair, his arms tightening around her as if he could make up for all the times they had to pretend to be strangers. "I know, baby. I know. But it's getting harder to hide this. Tonight proved that." Sarah pulled back to look up at him, seeing the conflict in his grey eyes. "What did you tell them?" "That their behavior was unacceptable, and that if I heard about anyone disrespecting staff again, there would be consequences," Marcus replied, his hand gently stroking her cheek. "But Sarah, we can't keep living like this. The secrecy is eating us alive." "You know why we have to," Sarah said softly, though her heart broke a little more each time they had this conversation. "If people knew about us, they would say, 'I'm only with you for your money.' They would never accept that we fell in love before you became successful." Marcus cupped her face in both hands, his thumbs wiping away tears she didn't realize had fallen. "Let them talk. I don't care what anyone thinks anymore. I care about you, about us, about the life we should be living together instead of hiding in shadows." "Marcus," Sarah began, but he silenced her with a gentle kiss that tasted of longing and 5 years of suppressed love. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. "I have something to tell you," Marcus said, his eyes serious. "The business trip wasn't just about expanding into Asian markets. I've been making arrangements, big ones." Sarah's heart began to race again, but for entirely different reasons. What kind of arrangements? Before Marcus could answer, his phone buzzed with an urgent message. As he read it, his expression darkened. "There's been a leak. Someone recorded part of what happened in the elevator tonight. It's already starting to spread through the company gossip network." Sarah felt the color drain from her face. "What does this mean?" Marcus straightened his shoulders, and she saw the steel that had built his empire rising to the surface. "It means the secret is out, whether we're ready or not." He took her hands in his grip firm and reassuring. "Sarah, there's something else you need to know. Something I should have told you weeks ago, but I wanted to handle everything perfectly first." The seriousness in his voice made her stomach clench with anticipation. "What is it?" Marcus looked deep into her eyes, his own filled with a determination she had never seen before. "I'm stepping down as CEO." Sarah stared at Marcus in shock, certain she had misheard him. "You're what?" "I'm stepping down as CEO," Marcus repeated, his hands tightening around hers. "I've been planning this for months, working with the board to ensure a smooth transition. I can't keep living this double life, Sarah. I can't keep pretending that the most important person in my world doesn't exist." The words hit her like a physical blow. "Marcus, no. You can't give up everything you've built just for what? Just for love? Just for happiness? Just for the chance to live authentically instead of hiding behind corporate walls?" His voice was fierce with conviction. "Sarah, I built this company from nothing. But what's the point of having everything if I can't share it with the person I love?" Sarah pulled away from him, pacing to the floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased the glittering Manhattan skyline. "You don't understand what you're saying. This company is your life's work. Thompson Industries employs thousands of people. You have responsibilities, and I'll still fulfill them," Marcus interrupted, moving to stand behind her. "I'm not abandoning the company. I'm transitioning to chairman of the board. I'll still be involved in major decisions, but I won't be trapped in this office 18 hours a day, pretending not to know the woman I married." Sarah's reflection in the window went pale. "Marcus, we're not actually married. The ceremony in Vegas 5 years ago wasn't what? Legal? Binding? Real?" Marcus turned her to face him, his gray eyes blazing with intensity. "Sarah, I don't care if it was performed by an Elvis impersonator at 3 a.m. after we'd been drinking champagne to celebrate my first major business deal. I don't care if the paperwork got lost in the system. In my heart, in my soul, you have been my wife for 5 years." Tears streamed down Sarah's face as memories flooded back. That magical night when Marcus was still a struggling entrepreneur with big dreams and bigger debts. She had been working 3 jobs to put herself through graduate school, and they had met at a diner at 2 a.m. where she waited tables, and he came to think through business problems over endless cups of coffee. "You were broke," she whispered, remembering. "You had $17 in your bank account, and a business plan that everyone said would never work. And you believed in me anyway," Marcus said softly. "When my own family called me a dreamer, when investors laughed at my presentation, when I was ready to give up everything, you were the one who said my ideas were brilliant. You helped me refine my business plan, you listened to me practice my pitches, and when I finally got that first meeting with venture capitalists, you gave me your last $100 for a decent suit." The memory was so vivid, Sarah could almost smell the diner's coffee and see Marcus's nervous hands as he adjusted that borrowed tie. "And then you landed the deal and everything changed." "Everything except us," Marcus said firmly. "But as the company grew, as I became more visible in the business world, we both knew what would happen if people found out about our relationship. They would say you were a gold digger, that you seduced me for money. They would never believe that you fell in love with a broke dreamer, not a billionaire." So we agreed to keep it secret, Sarah finished, the old pain as fresh as ever, just until things settled down, until the company was stable, until the timing was right. But there's never a right time, is there? Marcus asked sadly. There's always another business deal, another crisis, another reason to wait. Meanwhile, we're living like strangers, and it's killing me. Sarah leaned against the window, her forehead touching the cool glass. What happened in that elevator tonight? Those people treated me like I was nothing, like I was less than human. Marcus's jaw clenched. And it will never happen again. I've already spoken to Victoria and Richard. They've been reassigned to different departments, effective immediately, and I'm implementing new policies about workplace respect and dignity. You can't fix prejudice with corporate policies, Marcus, Sarah said wearily. People will always judge what they don't understand. Then let's make them understand, Marcus said, moving to stand beside her at the window. No more hiding, no more pretending. I want to tell the world that I'm married to the most incredible woman I've ever known. Sarah closed her eyes. And what about the company? Your reputation? Your shareholders? The shareholders care about profits, and I've delivered record gains for 5 consecutive years, Marcus said pragmatically. My reputation will survive, and as for the company, it will be stronger with authentic leadership rather than someone living a lie. A soft chime from Marcus's phone interrupted them. He glanced at the screen and frowned. It's from my head of security. The elevator incident is all over social media. Someone posted a video. Sarah's blood turned to ice. A video of what, exactly? Marcus scrolled through his phone, his expression growing grimmer. Of you being humiliated, of me defending you, of the looks on everyone's faces when I showed you kindness. He looked up at her with steely determination. Sarah, we're out of time. By tomorrow morning, this will be front-page news in the business section. We can either control the narrative or let others define us. Before Sarah could respond, the elevator chimed, and Marcus's personal assistant Janet appeared in the reception area. At 55, Janet had worked for Marcus for 3 years and was one of the few people who had suspected something was different about his relationship with the quiet night janitor. Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a situation developing, Janet said, her professional composure barely concealing her concern. I've had 7 calls from business reporters in the last 10 minutes. Word is spreading fast. Marcus nodded grimly. Janet, I need you to set up a press conference for tomorrow morning. And call our legal team. I want to make sure all our personal documents are in order. Janet's eyebrows rose slightly. What kind of documents, sir? Marcus looked at Sarah, silently asking for her consent. When she nodded slowly, he turned back to his assistant. Marriage certificates, insurance beneficiaries, everything that proves Sarah Chen has been my wife for 5 years. The words hung in the air like a declaration of war against the forces that had kept them apart. Janet's professional mask slipped for just a moment, revealing surprise, followed quickly by something that looked like relief. It will be my pleasure, sir, Janet said with genuine warmth. I'll make all the arrangements. As Janet returned to her desk to begin making calls, Marcus and Sarah stood together at the window, looking out at the city that was about to learn their secret. Are you sure about this? Sarah asked quietly. Once we go public, there's no going back. Everything changes. Marcus took her hand, intertwining their fingers the way he had in that Vegas chapel 5 years ago. Everything already has changed, sweetheart. Tonight in that elevator, when I saw how they were treating you, when I realized I was letting the woman I love be humiliated while I hid behind corporate protocol, that's when I knew we couldn't live like this anymore. The board will be furious, Sarah warned. Your investors will learn to deal with it, Marcus finished firmly. Sarah, I've spent 5 years building a business empire, but what good is ruling the world if you're alone at the top? I want to build a life with you, a real life in the open, where I can hold your hand in public and introduce you as my wife and not care what anyone thinks about it. Sarah squeezed his hand, feeling the weight of 5 years of secrecy finally beginning to lift. What if they're right? What if people think I'm only with you for your money? Marcus turned to face her fully, his grey eyes intense with conviction. "Then they don't know you. They don't know that you have a master's degree in business administration from Harvard. They don't know that you've been working nights as a janitor, not because you had to, but because you wanted to understand every level of the corporate world. They don't know that half the innovative ideas that made this company successful came from our late-night conversations over Chinese takeout." Sarah felt tears threatening again. "You never told anyone that." "Because you asked me not to," Marcus said simply. "Because you wanted to make your own way, prove your own worth. But Sarah, you've proven it 100 times over. You don't need to hide anymore." A new sound made them both turn, the elevator opening again. This time it was Marcus's head of public relations, David Kim, looking harried and clutching a tablet. "Mr. Thompson, we have a situation," David announced breathlessly. "The video from tonight is trending on 3 different platforms. We need to get ahead of this story before it spirals out of control." Marcus nodded calmly. "Set up interviews with the major business networks for tomorrow afternoon, after the press conference." "Sir, what exactly will you be announcing at this press conference?" David asked carefully. Marcus smiled for the first time since entering the elevator, and Sarah saw glimpses of the confident man she had fallen in love with. "That after 5 years of marriage, my wife and I are finally ready to step into the spotlight together." The revelation hit David like a thunderbolt, but to his credit, his expression quickly shifted from shock to professional calculation. "We'll need talking points, background information, photos." "Janet has the documentation," Marcus said. "As for photos, we have 5 years' worth of private moments that we kept private. I think it's time to share some of them with the world." As David hurried off to begin damage control, Marcus and Sarah found themselves alone again in the executive suite that had witnessed the beginning of the end of their secret life. "No more hiding," Marcus said, pulling her into his arms. "No more pretending we don't know each other," Sarah agreed, standing on her tiptoes to kiss him properly for the first time in a corporate setting. When they broke apart, both were smiling, despite the chaos that awaited them. "So what happens now?" Sarah asked. Marcus grinned with the confidence of a man who had built an empire and was now ready to build something even more important. "Now we face the world together. And trust me, sweetheart, they're not ready for us." But as the Manhattan lights twinkled beyond the windows, neither Marcus nor Sarah realized that their decision to go public would unleash consequences far beyond anything they had imagined. The secret they were about to reveal was only the beginning of a much larger story that would shake the corporate world to its foundations. Tomorrow, everything would change. But tonight, for the first time in 5 years, they were just Marcus and Sarah. No lies, no pretenses, no barriers between them and the truth of their extraordinary love story. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Marcus's penthouse apartment as Sarah stood before his walk-in closet, staring at the array of business suits that had never seen the light of day. After 5 years of hiding, she was about to step into the spotlight as Mrs. Marcus Thompson, and the weight of that transformation felt overwhelming. "The navy blue one," Marcus said softly from behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "It was always my favorite on you." Sarah leaned back against his chest, drawing strength from his presence. They had spent the night planning their public revelation, going over every detail with Janet and the PR team. In 3 hours, they would face the media together for the first time. "I keep thinking about what your mother said when we told her we were getting married," Sarah murmured, touching the sleeve of the elegant suit that had cost more than she used to make in 6 months. Marcus's arms tightened around her. "My mother was wrong about you then, and she's wrong about you now. You're not marrying me for money. You married me when I had none." The phone rang, interrupting their quiet moment. Janet's voice came through the speaker with professional urgency. "Mr. Thompson, we have a problem. Victoria Sterling has given an interview to Business Weekly. It's already online." Sarah felt Marcus tense behind her. "What did she say?" She's claiming that your relationship with Ms. Chen represents a conflict of interest and potential corporate malfeasance. She's suggesting that company resources may have been misused for personal purposes. Marcus stepped away from Sarah, his jaw clenching with controlled anger. Janet, contact our legal team immediately. I want every financial record from the past 5 years audited by an independent firm, and I want Victoria's employment records examined for any actual misconduct. Already in progress, sir, Janet replied efficiently. But there's more. The board has called an emergency meeting for this afternoon. They want to discuss the implications of your announcement before the press conference. Sarah watched Marcus's reflection in the closet mirror, seeing the weight of leadership settling back onto his shoulders. Move the press conference to 5 p.m., he decided. We'll deal with the board first. After Janet hung up, silence filled the penthouse. Sarah could see the doubt creeping into Marcus's eyes, the same uncertainty that had kept them apart for 5 years. Maybe we should wait, she said quietly. Give this time to settle down. Let the board... No. Marcus turned to face her, his grey eyes blazing with determination. We've waited long enough. Sarah, there's something else I need to tell you about why I'm stepping down as CEO. The seriousness in his voice made her stomach clench. What do you mean? Marcus ran a hand through his dark hair, suddenly looking vulnerable in a way she rarely saw. The company has been approached by Global Tech Industries. They want to buy Thompson Industries for $12 billion. Sarah's legs went weak, and she sank onto the leather bench in the center of the closet. $12 billion. It's the largest acquisition offer in the industry's history, Marcus continued, sitting beside her. The board has been pressuring me to accept for months. With that kind of money, every shareholder becomes incredibly wealthy overnight. But you don't want to sell, Sarah said, reading his expression. The company is my legacy, everything I've worked for, Marcus admitted. But Sarah, if I sell, we'd have the freedom to do anything we want. Travel the world, start a family, build something together without worrying about corporate politics or shareholder expectations. Sarah stared at him in shock. You're considering selling Thompson Industries. For us, I'm considering it for our future, Marcus corrected gently. The question is, what kind of future do you want? Before Sarah could answer, Marcus's phone buzzed with an urgent text. His expression darkened as he read it. The board meeting has been moved up to 9 a.m. They want to discuss my fitness to lead in light of recent revelations. They can't fire you, Sarah said immediately. You own 41% of the company. Duh, but the other 59% could vote me out if they united, Marcus replied grimly, especially if they believe I've compromised my judgment for personal reasons. An hour later, Sarah sat in the executive conference room of Thompson Industries, watching through the glass walls as Marcus faced 12 of the most powerful business leaders in New York. She couldn't hear the conversation, but their body language told the story. Accusatory gestures, heated exchanges, and Marcus standing alone against a wall of corporate disapproval. Janet approached with a fresh cup of coffee and a sympathetic expression. This is harder on him than he's letting on, she said quietly. They think I'm a liability, Sarah replied, watching Marcus defend himself with controlled precision. They think he's lost his mind over some gold-digging janitor. Then they don't know either of you very well, Janet said firmly. I've worked for Marcus for 3 years, and I've never seen him as focused and driven as he's been since you've been in his life. Even when he was hiding your relationship, you made him better at everything he did. Through the glass, Sarah saw one of the board members, Harrison Webb, the elderly founder of Webb Financial, slam his hand on the table. Marcus's response was calm but firm, and Sarah could see the steel in his posture that had built an empire. What's Harrison saying? Sarah asked. Janet consulted her tablet, where she had been receiving updates from Marcus's assistant inside the meeting. He's demanding proof that no company resources were used for personal purposes. He wants a full investigation into every interaction you and Marcus have had on company property. Sarah's blood ran cold. Janet, there's something you need to know, something that could change everything. What is it? Sarah took a deep breath, preparing to reveal the secret she had kept even from Marcus. I'm not just a Harvard MBA graduate. I'm Dr. Sarah Chen, and I've been conducting industrial efficiency research for my doctoral dissertation. For 2 years, I've been documenting every aspect of this company's operations as a participant observer. Janet's eyes widened. You're saying? I'm saying that I've been studying Thomson Industries as part of my PhD in organizational psychology from MIT. My janitorial position wasn't just a job, it was research. And my findings could revolutionize how corporations approach employee engagement and operational efficiency. Does Marcus know? No, Sarah admitted. I planned to tell him after I finished my dissertation, but now, she gestured toward the hostile board meeting. Now this research could either save his reputation or destroy our marriage. Janet stared at her with growing comprehension. Dr. Chen, what exactly did your research uncover? Before Sarah could answer, the conference room doors opened and Marcus emerged, his face grim but determined. The board members filed out behind him, their expressions ranging from grudging acceptance to outright hostility. Marcus approached Sarah with the careful control of a man who had just fought the battle of his professional life. We need to talk, he said quietly. In his private office, with the door closed and the blinds drawn, Marcus finally allowed his professional mask to slip. They gave me an ultimatum, he said, sinking into his leather chair. Prove that our relationship hasn't compromised the company's interests or face a vote of no confidence next week. What kind of proof do they want? Sarah asked, though she suspected she already knew. A complete audit of every decision I've made in the past 5 years, every promotion, every policy change, every financial allocation. They want to know if I've shown favoritism to departments where you worked, if I've made decisions based on information you might have provided. Sarah felt the walls closing in around them. Marcus, there's something I have to tell you. Something that changes everything. The seriousness in her voice made him look up sharply. What is it? Sarah pulled out her laptop and opened a file she had never shown anyone. My name isn't just Sarah Chen. It's Dr. Sarah Chen, PhD candidate in organizational psychology at MIT. For the past 2 years, I've been conducting my doctoral research on employee engagement and corporate efficiency. My subject was Thomson Industries. Marcus stared at the screen, displaying her research credentials, academic publications, and the preliminary findings of her dissertation. You've been studying my company? I've been studying how companies can create more inclusive, efficient work environments by understanding the perspectives of employees at every level, Sarah explained quickly. I wanted to see how decisions made in executive boardrooms actually impact the people who clean the floors and empty the trash cans. You've been watching me, Marcus said slowly, his voice unreadable, analyzing my leadership style, my decisions, my company culture. Marcus, please listen. How much of this was real? He interrupted, gesturing between them. How much of our relationship was part of your research? Sarah felt tears stinging her eyes. None of it. I fell in love with you completely separate from my research. I didn't even choose Thomson Industries as my subject until after we were already married. I chose it because I wanted to understand your world better, to see how I could fit into it. Marcus was silent for a long moment, processing this revelation. What did you find? Sarah hesitated, then opened another file on her laptop. I found that Thomson Industries is one of the most ethically managed companies in the industry. I found that your leadership style creates loyalty and dedication at every level. I found that employees respect you not because they fear you, but because you've created a culture of genuine fairness. And I found evidence that could prove to your board that our relationship has actually made you a better leader, not a compromised one. Marcus leaned forward, his business instincts overriding his personal emotions. What kind of evidence? Sarah turned her laptop toward him, showing detailed charts and analyses. Productivity has increased 17% in departments where I've worked. Employee satisfaction scores are highest in areas where you've implemented policies we've discussed during our private conversations. Turnover is down, innovation is up, and worker safety incidents have decreased by 32%. You're saying our relationship has been good for business? I'm saying that love doesn't make leaders weak. It makes them more connected to the human side of leadership. You haven't been compromised by caring about me. You've been enhanced by understanding what it feels like to see your company from the ground up. Marcus studied the data with the intensity that had made him a billionaire. This research, could it stand up to academic scrutiny? Could it be peer-reviewed and published? It already has been, Sarah said quietly. Preliminary findings were published in the Harvard Business Review last month. I used Thomson Industries as an anonymous case study, but the conclusions were clear. Companies led by executives who understand every level of their organization consistently outperform those led by isolated decision-makers. For the first time since the board meeting, Marcus smiled. Dr. Chen, I think you just saved both our careers. But even as hope flickered between them, neither realized that their revelations were about to attract attention from forces far more powerful than a corporate board of directors. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across Marcus's office as he and Sarah prepared for what would either be their vindication or their downfall. The board had agreed to reconvene at 4 p.m. to review Sarah's research findings, and the tension in the air was palpable. "Are you sure about this?" Marcus asked, as Sarah organized her research files. "Once we show them your academic credentials and research, there's no hiding anymore. You'll go from being seen as a simple janitor to being recognized as one of the most brilliant organizational psychologists in the country." Sarah smoothed her navy blue suit, the same one Marcus had admired that morning, which now felt like armor for the battle ahead. "I've been hiding long enough. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it completely honestly." Janet knocked on the door and entered with her tablet. "The board members are assembling. But, sir, there's been a development. Harrison Webb has brought someone with him, Dr. Elizabeth Morrison from the Harvard Business School. She's considered one of the foremost experts on corporate ethics." Marcus and Sarah exchanged glances. "Why would he bring an outside expert?" Sarah wondered. "Sarah, because he wants to make sure your research can't be dismissed as bias in favor of your husband," Marcus realized. "He's playing this completely by the book." As they made their way to the conference room, Sarah felt the weight of 5 years of secrecy finally lifting from her shoulders. In a few minutes, she would stand before some of the most powerful people in corporate America and reveal not just her identity, but research that could change how companies operate worldwide. The conference room felt different this time. Instead of the hostile atmosphere from the morning, there was a sense of anticipation, as if everyone present understood they were about to witness something significant. Harrison Webb, at 72, the oldest and most respected member of the board, stood as Marcus and Sarah entered. "Mr. Thompson, Ms. Chen, I believe you have something to show us." "Dr. Chen," Sarah corrected gently, setting her laptop on the conference table. "And yes, I believe I do." The correction sent a ripple of surprise through the room. Dr. Morrison, a distinguished woman in her 50s with silver hair and sharp green eyes, leaned forward with obvious interest. Sarah opened her presentation and took a deep breath. "Gentlemen, Dr. Morrison, for the past 2 years, I have been conducting doctoral research on organizational efficiency and employee engagement. My dissertation, which was approved by MIT's Ethics Board and has been partially published in the Harvard Business Review, examines how corporate leaders can make better decisions by understanding their organizations from every perspective." She clicked to her first slide, showing her academic credentials and publication history. "I chose Thomson Industries as my case study, not because of my personal relationship with Marcus, which predates my research by 3 years, but because preliminary analysis suggested it was a company that prioritized ethical leadership and employee welfare." Harrison Webb studied the slide intently. "Dr. Chen, are you saying you've been conducting academic research while employed as a janitor?" I'm saying that sometimes the best way to understand something is to experience it from the inside, Sarah replied. Traditional organizational research relies on surveys and interviews. But employees often tell researchers what they think they want to hear. When you're emptying their trash cans and cleaning their offices, you hear what they really think. Dr. Morrison spoke for the first time, her voice carrying academic authority. This methodology is highly unusual, but not unprecedented. Participant observation can provide insights that traditional research methods miss. Dr. Chen, what were your primary findings? Sarah clicked to her next slide, showing detailed productivity charts. I found that Thomson Industries operates with an unusual level of ethical consistency. Decisions made at the executive level are implemented throughout the organization with remarkable fidelity to the original intent. What does that mean in practical terms? Asked board member Robert Sterling. It means when Marcus implements a policy to improve worker safety, it actually improves worker safety. When he announces a commitment to employee development, employees actually receive better training and advancement opportunities. In most corporations, there's significant degradation between executive intention and ground-level implementation. The board members murmured among themselves, clearly intrigued, despite their earlier hostility. Sarah continued, clicking through slides that showed measurable improvements across every metric she had studied. Productivity in areas where I worked personally increased by 17%. But this wasn't because I was providing insider information to Marcus. We made a point of never discussing specific employees or departments. The improvement came because Marcus's leadership style creates an environment where employees feel valued and motivated. You're suggesting that Mr. Thompson's emotional investment in understanding employee perspectives has made him a better CEO? Dr. Morrison asked. I'm not suggesting it, I'm proving it, Sarah said confidently. Companies whose executives maintain emotional distance from their workforce show significantly lower performance across every measurable category. Leaders who understand what it feels like to be at every level of their organization make better decisions for everyone. Marcus watched with pride as Sarah commanded the room with the same confidence she had shown in their private conversations over the years. This was the brilliant woman he had fallen in love with, finally able to show the world her true capabilities. Dr. Chen, Harrison Webb interrupted, this is all very interesting from an academic perspective, but I have a more practical question. If your research is as groundbreaking as you suggest, why didn't you pursue it through traditional channels? Why hide your credentials and work as a janitor? Sarah had been expecting this question. Mr. Webb, how many cleaning staff members have you had personal conversations with in your 40 years of business? The elderly board member blinked, clearly taken aback. That's not really. Exactly, Sarah said gently. When I'm Dr. Sarah Chen from MIT, people tell me what they think I want to hear. When I'm Sarah, the night janitor, they show me who they really are. I learned more about corporate culture in 2 years of cleaning offices than I could have learned in a decade of traditional research. Dr. Morrison was taking notes rapidly. This methodology could revolutionize organizational psychology. Have you considered expanding this research to other companies? Actually, Marcus interjected, speaking for the first time since entering the room, that's part of what we wanted to discuss with the board today. Sarah clicked to her final slide, showing a detailed business proposal. Based on my research findings, Marcus and I would like to propose the creation of the Thomson Institute for Ethical Leadership. It would be a research and consulting organization that helps companies implement the kind of authentic ground-up leadership that has made Thomson Industries so successful. The room fell silent as the board members absorbed this proposal. Finally, Harrison Webb leaned back in his chair. You're suggesting that instead of selling the company, we use Dr. Chen's research to expand our influence across the entire industry. I'm suggesting that we have an opportunity to lead a revolution in how business is conducted, Marcus replied. Sarah's research proves that ethical leadership isn't just morally right, it's more profitable. Companies that implement these principles outperform their competitors consistently. Robert Sterling frowned. And who would run this institute, Dr. Chen? Dr. Chen and I would co-direct it, Marcus said firmly, with the backing of Thomson Industries, but as an independent research organization. I would step down as CEO of Thomson Industries to focus on this new venture full-time. And who would replace you as CEO? Asked board member Patricia Huang. Marcus smiled. I'd recommend Dr. Chen for the position. The suggestion hit the room like a thunderbolt. Sarah herself looked shocked. This wasn't part of their plan. Marcus, she whispered, we didn't discuss this. Because I knew you'd argue with me, he replied quietly. Sarah, you know this company better than anyone. You've studied every aspect of its operation, you understand what makes it successful, and you have the academic credentials and practical experience to lead it into the future. Harrison Webb cleared his throat. Mr. Thomson, are you seriously suggesting that we appoint a janitor as CEO of a $12 billion company? I'm suggesting you appoint one of the most qualified organizational psychologists in the country, Marcus corrected. Someone who has already proven that her insights can improve company performance. Someone who understands this business from the ground up, literally. Dr. Morrison looked fascinated. This would be unprecedented. A CEO chosen based on academic research rather than traditional business experience. Everything about Thomson Industries has been unprecedented, Marcus replied. That's why it's successful. The board members looked at each other uncertainly. This was far beyond anything they had expected when they called the emergency meeting. Finally, Harrison Webb spoke. We need time to consider these proposals. Dr. Chen, would you be willing to present your complete research findings to an independent review board? Of course, Sarah replied, her mind still reeling from Marcus's unexpected nomination. And Mr. Thomson, you're prepared to step down as CEO regardless of our decision about Dr. Chen's appointment? I am, Marcus said without hesitation. My decision to leave the CEO position isn't contingent on any other factors. It's time for me to move on to new challenges. As the board members filed out to deliberate, Marcus and Sarah found themselves alone in the conference room, the weight of the day's revelations settling around them. CEO? Sarah asked incredulously. Marcus, I've never run a company. You've been studying how to run a company better than anyone else for 2 years, Marcus replied. Sarah, you're brilliant, you're ethical, and you understand this business in ways that traditional executives never could. But the board will never approve it. Harrison Webb thinks I'm too unconventional. Harrison Webb is about to retire, Marcus said with a smile, and the younger board members are intrigued by your research. Besides, there's one more thing I haven't told you. What now? Marcus pulled out his phone and showed her a message. While we were in the meeting, Janet received a call from Global Tech Industries. They've increased their acquisition offer to $15 billion, but they want to include the Thomson Institute for Ethical Leadership as part of the deal. Sarah stared at the phone in disbelief. They want to buy our idea before we've even implemented it? They want to buy the future of business leadership, Marcus corrected. The question is, do we sell or do we prove that our way of doing business is better than theirs? As the sun set over Manhattan, Marcus and Sarah stood at the crossroads of their personal and professional lives, unaware that their decision would ripple far beyond the walls of Thomson Industries and change the corporate world forever. But in the building's security office, someone had been monitoring their conversations all day, and that someone was preparing to make a phone call that would threaten everything they had fought to build. The emergency board meeting had been reconvened for 7 p.m., but as Marcus and Sarah waited in his office, an unexpected visitor changed everything. Janet knocked and entered with a man they didn't recognize, tall, distinguished, wearing an expensive suit that screamed federal authority. Mr. Thomson, this is Agent David Richardson from the Securities and Exchange Commission. Janet announced, her voice tight with concern. Marcus stood immediately, his business instincts on high alert. "Agent Richardson, what can I do for you?" The agent's expression was serious but not hostile. "Mr. Thompson, Dr. Chen, I'm here because your situation has attracted attention from several federal agencies. When a Harvard Business Review article describes a company showing unusual efficiency gains, and then we learn those gains were documented by an undercover researcher married to the CEO, it raises questions about potential securities fraud." Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. "Agent Richardson, my research was completely legitimate. I followed all academic protocols." "I'm sure you did, Dr. Chen," the agent interrupted gently, "but we've received complaints alleging that inside information may have been used to inflate stock prices or make trades based on non-public knowledge." Marcus's jaw clenched. "Who filed these complaints?" "I can't reveal that information yet, but I can tell you that we've been monitoring communications related to Thompson Industries for the past week. The timing of your public revelation, combined with the global tech acquisition discussions, has created a perfect storm of regulatory scrutiny." Before anyone could respond, Agent Richardson's phone buzzed. He answered it briefly, then looked back at them with a changed expression. "I need you both to come with me. There's been a development." 20 minutes later, Marcus and Sarah found themselves in a federal building conference room, facing not just Agent Richardson, but a team of investigators from multiple agencies. The gravity of the situation was becoming clear. This was far more serious than corporate politics. "Dr. Chen," Agent Richardson began, "we've reviewed your academic work, and we're satisfied that your research methodology was legitimate and ethical. However, we've uncovered evidence of a larger conspiracy that involves your husband's company." He placed a folder on the table between them. "For the past 6 months, someone has been using information about Thompson Industries to manipulate stock prices. Small trades, carefully timed, designed to profit from market fluctuations without raising immediate suspicion." Marcus opened the folder, studying trading records and financial documents. "I don't understand. These account numbers don't belong to anyone at Thompson Industries." "No, they don't," Agent Richardson confirmed. "They belong to Victoria Sterling and Richard Hayes, the executives you disciplined yesterday. But here's where it gets interesting. The information they used to make these trades came from surveillance equipment illegally installed in your office and conference rooms." Sarah gasped. "They were spying on us for months," another investigator confirmed. "High-tech listening devices, hidden cameras, even software installed on company computers to monitor emails and financial discussions. They knew about the global tech offer weeks before it was formally presented to your board." Marcus's face went white as the implications sank in. "The elevator incident last night, Victoria's interview with Business Weekly, they were trying to create chaos to cover their tracks." "Exactly," Agent Richardson said. "When they learned you were planning to go public with your marriage, they realized their surveillance operation was at risk of exposure. So they decided to discredit both of you before anyone could discover what they'd been doing." The lead investigator, a woman named Agent Martinez, leaned forward. "Mr. Thompson, Dr. Chen, you're not in trouble. You're victims of a sophisticated corporate espionage operation, but we need your help to build our case." Over the next 2 hours, Marcus and Sarah provided detailed accounts of their interactions with Victoria and Richard, their knowledge of company financial discussions, and the timeline of events leading up to the elevator confrontation. With each revelation, the scope of the conspiracy became clearer. "The beautiful irony," Agent Richardson said as they wrapped up, "is that Dr. Chen's research actually provides us with crucial evidence. Her documentation of company culture and employee behavior patterns helped us identify the anomalies that led to discovering the surveillance." "What happens now?" Sarah asked. "Now you go back to your board meeting," Agent Martinez replied. "You make whatever decisions you think are best for your company and your future. Victoria Sterling and Richard Hayes are already in custody, and we have enough evidence to ensure they won't be a problem for anyone else." As they prepared to leave, Agent Richardson stopped them with one final comment. "For what it's worth, your story gives me hope for the business world. It's refreshing to investigate a case where the love story is real and the criminals are the ones trying to exploit it." Back at Thompson Industries, the board meeting had taken on a surreal quality. News of the federal investigation had already reached the members, transforming their perception of everything that had happened. Harrison Webb stood as Marcus and Sarah entered the conference room. "Marcus, Sarah, Dr. Chen, I owe you both an apology. When we learned about the surveillance and the stock manipulation, everything became clear. Your relationship wasn't a liability to this company. It was protection against people who would have destroyed us from within." "The board has reached several decisions," announced Patricia Huang. "First, we're declining Global Tech's acquisition offer. Thompson Industries will remain independent." Marcus and Sarah exchanged surprised glances. This wasn't what they had expected. "Second," Harrison continued, "we're approving the creation of the Thompson Institute for Ethical Leadership with full company backing and independence to pursue Dr. Chen's research methodologies." Robert Sterling spoke next. "And third, we're accepting Marcus's resignation as CEO, effective immediately." The words hung in the air for a moment before Harrison Webb smiled. "Because we're appointing Dr. Sarah Chen as the new CEO of Thompson Industries, with Marcus Thompson as chairman of the board and co-director of the Thompson Institute." Sarah felt the room spinning around her. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Marcus whispered, taking her hand. "Say yes to everything we've dreamed of building together." Dr. Morrison, who had remained silent throughout the evening's revelations, finally spoke. "Dr. Chen, your research has already attracted attention from Harvard, MIT, and Stanford. They want to study your methodologies and implement them in their business programs. You have the opportunity to change how leadership is taught and practiced worldwide. And," Harrison added with a grandfatherly smile, "you have the opportunity to prove that love and business success aren't mutually exclusive. This company has been built on unconventional thinking. It's time for unconventional leadership." "Udi!" As the board members filed out, offering congratulations and support, Marcus and Sarah found themselves alone in the conference room that had witnessed so much drama over the past day. "CEO," Sarah said wonderingly. "I'm going to be the CEO of a $12 billion company." "You're going to be the CEO of our company," Marcus corrected, pulling her into his arms. "And I'm going to be your husband, publicly and proudly, for the first time in 5 years." "What about the press conference?" Sarah asked, suddenly remembering the media circus waiting for them. Marcus glanced at his watch. It was nearly 9 p.m. "Janet rescheduled it for tomorrow morning. She thought we might want tonight to ourselves, to process everything that's happened." And as they stood together in the conference room, looking out at the Manhattan skyline that would soon know them as the most unconventional power couple in corporate America, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. 5 years ago, we got married in Vegas with $17 between us," she said softly. "And now we're about to run a business empire together," Marcus replied. "Some people might say we've changed." Sarah stood on her tiptoes to kiss him, tasting the future in that sweet connection. "I don't think we've changed at all. I think we've just finally become who we were always meant to be." The next morning, as news outlets across the country reported the story of the janitor who became a CEO and the billionaire who chose love over corporate convention, Marcus and Sarah held their press conference with confidence and joy. "The American dream isn't about climbing ladders," Sarah told the assembled reporters. "It's about building bridges between different worlds, different perspectives, different possibilities. Thompson Industries has succeeded because we believe that business at its best is about bringing out the best in people. And sometimes," Marcus added, his arm around his wife's waist, "the best way to lead a company is to remember what it feels like to be every person who works there." 6 months later, the Thompson Institute for Ethical Leadership had become the most sought-after consulting organization in the business world. Sarah's research methodologies were being taught at business schools globally, and Thompson Industries had achieved record profits under her leadership. But perhaps most importantly, Marcus and Sarah had proven that in a world often divided between love and ambition, it was possible to choose both, and in choosing both, to build something far greater than either could achieve alone. Their love story had begun in a diner at 2 a.m. between a broke dreamer and a struggling graduate student. It had been tested in corporate boardrooms and federal investigations, and it had triumphed not because it was perfect, but because it was real, authentic, supportive, and strong enough to transform not just their own lives, but the lives of everyone their success would touch. As Sarah often told the business leaders who came to study their methods, the most revolutionary thing you can do in corporate America is to be completely, authentically human. Everything else follows from there. And in the end, that simple truth, that love and authenticity make everything stronger, became the foundation upon which they built not just a business empire, but a legacy that would inspire ethical leadership for generations to come.